Hello and welcome to Future Trends, where we examine the latest stories reshaping tomorrow's international dynamics. I'm here with your weekly briefing for the 27th of May 2025. This week, we're covering some major political shifts. Joseph Kabila's return to rebel-controlled Eastern Congo, South Korea heading to elections after its worst constitutional crisis, and a landmark agreement between Britain and the EU that finally resets their post-Brexit relationship. Plus, Christine Lagarde believes American unpredictability gives the euro a real opportunity to challenge the dollar. We'll also look at some fascinating scientific breakthroughs, contact lenses that enable night vision, and rapid blood tests for rare diseases, and the EU's groundbreaking consideration to become the first major power to effectively ban children from social media. Let's dive in. Starting with politics, and there's been significant instability across several regions. In Portugal, the country's third election in 3 years has failed to resolve the ongoing political crisis. The far-right Chega party's rise, now equaling the socialists in seats, is making it extremely difficult to form any stable government. Meanwhile, a major development in the Democratic Republic of Congo, former President Joseph Kabila has returned from exile, arriving in the eastern city of Goma. What makes this particularly significant is that Goma is currently controlled by M23 rebels, making his return both dramatic and controversial. Across the Atlantic, the UK and European Union have finally agreed to what they are calling a new chapter in post-Brexit relations. Leaders from both sides met in London, marking the first formal UK-EU summit since Brexit. This reset deal covers trade, security, and fisheries areas that have been thorny issues for years. There's also been a diplomatic scandal as Ghana has temporarily shut its embassy in Washington, D.C. An audit uncovered major corruption involving visa fraud, and Ghana is working to restore diplomatic integrity. And in South Korea, citizens will vote for a new president on the 3rd of June, following what's being called the nation's worst constitutional crisis. This election could finally bring stability after months of political chaos. Moving to conflict zones, there's been a significant prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine, their largest swap since the war began 3 years ago. This 3-day exchange was agreed during recent face-to-face talks in Istanbul, marking a rare moment of cooperation amid the ongoing conflict. President Trump's recent comments calling Vladimir Putin absolutely crazy following a major aerial assault on Ukraine have drawn a response from the Kremlin, who described Trump's remarks as being connected to an emotional overload. In South Asia, Pakistan's military is experiencing a surge in domestic popularity following a recent clash with India. However, security analysts from the International Crisis Group warn that this current support may prove temporary. The EU and Britain have announced new sanctions against Russia, notably proceeding without waiting for the US to join them. This follows a call between Trump and Putin, showing Europe's increasing independence in foreign policy decisions. And for history enthusiasts, The Economist has launched Archive 1945, republishing its news and reportage from the final year of World War II, a fascinating look back 80 years on. Turning to economics, Christine Lagarde, head of the European Central Bank, has made some bold statements about the euro's potential. She believes that unpredictable US policies under the Trump administration have created a genuine opportunity for the euro to challenge the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Ethiopia is celebrating record coffee export revenue, $187 billion over the last 10 months. This surge is largely due to poor production this year in Brazil, the world's top coffee producer, which has driven up Arabica bean prices globally. However, there are concerns about US climate policy changes threatening debt-for-nature swaps, Countries like Angola and Zambia risk losing billion-dollar conservation deals as America pulls back on climate financing. On a positive note, the EU has lifted all economic sanctions on Syria, following a similar move by the United States last week. These sanctions had been in place throughout President Bashar al-Assad's rule. Oil prices are holding steady as traders weigh the prospect of easing EU-US trade tensions, whilst markets await an OPEC Plus meeting that will decide future supply policy. In development news, China is reportedly planning a new version of its Made in China 2025 campaign. This aims to boost tech self-sufficiency, likely focusing on semiconductors and artificial intelligence, crucial areas given ongoing trade tensions. Southeast Asian cooperation is strengthening as Indonesia and Thailand have agreed to elevate their relationship to a strategic partnership. They're pushing for greater cooperation in trade, investment, tourism, and food security. There's been a resolution to a long-standing territorial dispute as the UN's top court sided with Equatorial Guinea over 3 oil-rich islands claimed by Gabon. The court ruled that a 1900 colonial treaty gives Equatorial Guinea ownership. Greenland has granted a 30-year mining permit to a Danish-French group aiming to extract rock that could offer a climate-friendly alternative in aluminium production, potentially significant for green technology. However, there are serious concerns about illegal gold mining. A UN report warns that crime groups in Africa present a global threat, exploiting loopholes to add illegal gold to supply chains, thereby funding conflict and human rights abuses. The African Development Bank is facing calls for reform ahead of its leadership election, with experts suggesting it needs a distinctive African-style approach that moves away from Western financial conventions. Finally, some fascinating social and technological developments. The EU is considering groundbreaking proposals that could make it the world's first major power to effectively prevent children from accessing social media platforms. This comes as efforts to regulate big tech continue to gather pace globally. In education news, 3 Hong Kong universities have invited international students from Harvard to join them, following escalating pressure on the US university from the Trump administration. There's exciting news in medical technology. Scientists have developed supervision contact lenses that enable wearers to see in the near-infrared spectrum. These could potentially restore color perception for people with color blindness and offer night vision capabilities. However, there's challenging news from the US Supreme Court, which has suspended protections for 350,000 Venezuelans, putting them at risk of deportation with no rationale provided for this decision at this time. In the UK, the West Nile virus has been detected for the first time in British mosquitoes, according to the UK Health Security Agency, a development being closely monitored by health officials. And finally, some excellent news from Australia. Scientists have developed a breakthrough rapid blood test that can accurately diagnose rare genetic diseases in children within days, potentially replacing more costly and invasive procedures like muscle biopsies. That's your Future Trends briefing for this week. From political upheavals in Congo and South Korea to the UK-EU reset and groundbreaking medical advances, it's clear that the international landscape continues to evolve rapidly. Thank you for watching Future Trends. We'll be back next week with more stories reshaping tomorrow's world. Until then, stay informed, stay curious, and keep looking ahead.